I want to introduce our speaker today. Most of you already know him, so I'm going to only give the Reader's Digest version of his background and focus on the things that I think are important for leaders. So he's currently the state CIO, and I like the fact that he's come from an area of Attorney General's office where he was a CIO, but he was always there helping people grow, heavy into cybersecurity. But what I thought about him and what I've learned from meeting him is he's a leader with a vision. He's a leader who inspires, and he's a leader who elevates others. And I thought that was enough until I learned that he's someone who also supports and promotes people that he works with and report to him. And that's, the definition of a true leader. And so I just thought he would be perfect to come to our Leadership Speaker Series. And this is the last one of the year, maybe the last one that I do, seeing how I'm going to be leaving at the end of the month. But can you help me welcome Ervan, please?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yes. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Can you hear me okay? All right. I have a little bit of allergies, so it usually affects me when things are growing and when things are dying, and so things are dying. And so it's not quite winter yet, so the ebbs and flows. So if you hear congestion, that's what it is. So I'll try not to cough on you, sneeze on you, all that good stuff. As a part of making sure that, one, I don't put you to sleep, and two, that you're engaged, throughout the presentation, you may hear me say OH. Okay, and I'm looking for an IL in return. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I see some familiar faces in the audience. Can we just get a shout out of which groups are represented here? So I know we got the Franklin County, the auditors. If those that don't know, this is my lovely daughter, Alexis Rodgers. I'm really extremely proud of her, and I'll stop because she's probably turning blushing. So at any rate, she is my heart, and so don't mess with her. So anyway, but with that being said, what other groups are represented here at the table? Okay. Juvenile court. Okay. 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 All right. Day center. Okay. All right. Security. Okay. 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 All right. All right. All right. Got a friend in the house. I started my career at EDS. So I was that guy, that technical guy on the help desk that actually took the call for those my technical friends in the room where it was on lines of, hey, my coffee cup holder is not working. It's like, okay, sir, we don't install coffee cup holders on, it was a CD-ROM, and it sucked it into the machine, therefore, yeah. So that was interesting. So from there, I said, okay, call center is great. I would take 40 calls by lunchtime. We'd make a big game out of it. But after 3 months, I was bored. And I said, how's this put together? I want to understand the technology behind it. And so I had an internship where I had never turned on a computer before, and I didn't want to go back too far because then it might date me. But this computer was, and I'll date myself now, it was a 286. And it was handed to me, and I said, you got 3 days to figure it out. Well, I didn't know that this was kind of the initiation testing phase for interns. And so I said, okay, 3 days, all right, we'll figure it out. So I bartered throughout the entire organization. I met with the sales team to try and understand what they did and said, hey, I'm willing to do X, Y, and Z if you're willing to help me with the laptops or with the it was a tower at the time. And so each time, hey, Jeff, each time they would help me get a little bit further. And so I got done with the sales team. I did a bunch of work for them. Through the course of the process, I figured out a more efficient way to help them with their maintenance. And so I was making a bunch of calls. Little did I know, a little young intern making, $12 an hour. I helped them basically raise $300,000. So it got the attention of the CEO. And so he came down, had a conversation with me. Day two, I could hear them talking in the background. They were tussling, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on. I'm like, whatever. So the next day, they're like, the computer's still not working. It's like, okay, well, I'm on it. You gave me 3 days. So the next day, I worked with the development team. And so I start talking with them, trying to understand what is it that you guys do. And so I found some efficiencies that they could do things a little better by sharing knowledge, teaching each other. So they got me one step further, got past the boot screen. It's like, okay, I'm past this. This is good. They're like, now you need to install, software. I'm like, okay, great. So can you help me? No, you'll have to go talk to, the support team. Okay, great. So day 3, I go talk to the support team. Long story short, I figured out how to get that computer up and operational. And that was my first love for computers. And through the course of that, it was really like the early trials of collaboration. We just didn't call it that. I have a very extroverted personality. I walk into a room, and by the time I'm done, I know about half of the folks with authentic. There's a difference between meeting somebody, and then there's authenticity. And as a part of your leadership style, you need to make sure that you're coming from a place of genuineness. If not, people can pick up on that. So in 2000, actually, to finish this EDS story, I actually joined the technology team after 3 months being on team. And after joining them, I said, hey, we need to have an inventory of our assets, et cetera. They're like, that's a good idea. I'm like, okay, well, they said, go do it. So I went, I did it, and by doing that, I found out a number of people, and I said, man, we can build this model if we take the one that we had in Lansing, Michigan. So I moved here from Lansing, Michigan. So we could take this one and replicate it. We need a backup so that we're not having to work 24/7, middle of the night shifts, people are tired, et cetera. We need to follow the sun. So they said, okay, well, that sounds good. We got this test site out here. How about you go to San Jose? I was like, okay. So first flight. I get on the plane, and I go out to San Jose, and we start talking about this test site. I'm out at Adobe, and again, it's about building, working with people, collaborating. I'll fast forward. I actually started to build call centers around the the United States. We kept them onshore. Back then, offshore wasn't really a thing. So we kept them onshore, taking communities that were either industries had moved. We retooled those folks, got them into call centers, and it was like a shared services model. So primarily EDS was supporting GM at the time, and then they started to expand their customer base. So then someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, why don't you come aboard to Accenture? So in 2000, I had to look at my LinkedIn profile to kind of put these dates together. So in 2000, I joined Accenture, and I started to travel worldwide. And I got opportunities such as Hong Kong, Germany, Switzerland, India. And yes, that's a picture of me in front of the Taj Mahal. I got a great opportunity. Back then, it was a 33.6 modem speed connection, at best. And so I had these webcams that I would take with me. So again, having a family, 3 kids, a wife, that was getting kind of old living out of a suitcase. So we made the decision. 2002, I got my bachelor's degree. In 2006, we made a decision to move from Lansing. So when I say I'm from Michigan, most folks are like, the school up north, blah, blah, blah. When we first moved here, I was like, what's the big deal? We got two teams up in Michigan. Michigan State, 2 big teams. And so we were walking, my son, he's the first kid to go all the way from kindergarten to his senior year with the same group of kids. We're walking him to the bus stop, and kids stopped me and said, hey, we noticed your plates. They say Michigan. Kindergarten. I'm like, okay, and? So I'm looking over at the parents like, come get your kid. I don't know how you do it in Ohio, but come get your kid. So, we get past that. I guess they said that, look, hey, we are like, they're totally into it. So I finally went to a tailgate, and I said, okay, let's see how it's done here. DJ, it's all tricked out trucks and SUVs and, big mass buses. So I was like, okay, might be onto something here. And then kept winning. I'm like, not bad, not bad. So slowly but surely, when Alexis went to OSU, she was our first kid to get in college, and she did her thing, and so it became easier over time to say, OHIO. And the only thing I haven't quite given up is basketball, because of my love with Coach Izzo and what he does for the community and the kids. But other than that, full-fledged Buckeye. So joined Huntington. I had the opportunity to go out east, out west. I have 4 clients that wanted me to join their firm. because they knew my desire to come off of the road. And so we picked Huntington here primarily because we had the first set of grandkids, 3 on both sides, and they wanted to weigh in on that decision. So that's how we kind of landed it in Westerville. My wife picked our house in 2 weekends. It was all based on stats. So I said I borrowed my slide from my wife. She had so many more accomplishments on her slide that I actually had to delete half of it just so I could, I was like, man, mine looks a little, So my wife is my biggest cheerleader. That's my best friend. And we partner together to build a foundation for our family. So I joined Huntington, and I was there for about 8 years. I kept working towards, I wanted to be a CIO. When I was at Accenture, I would write decks, I would write presentations, I would always work with the C-suite. I had to get parachuted into a project to help a project or help an initiative. I helped Cardinal Health build 2 call centers and 1 offshore. So I kept trying various segments within Huntington. I had a great time there, learned a lot of things, was able to network, get really engaged in the United Way community because I wanted an opportunity to have my kids not only understand that, too much is given, much is required, that whole saying, African proverb, but I wanted to get involved in the United Way to get back into the community. And so I got the opportunity to participate. And I was so into it that I didn't know that, all the other things that come with it. So they're like, man, you were such a champion. We want you to, be a part of our campaign. I'm like, okay. So I did that and ended up in a commercial, billboards, et cetera. With regards to Huntington, there came a layoff. And that was the changing point in my life. And so many people were surprised. They're like, did you get the right person? Do you know who he is? And so my ego was, it was pretty out there, and I'm not gonna lie, but even I was like, did you get the right person? But the long story short, everything happens for a reason, and as long as you know where your purpose comes from and who's driving your life, you're in a much, much better place. And so I think it was the biggest blessing of my life ever. I had hired a career coach 6 months before that layoff took place, because I found out that, I was getting in the way of myself. Sometimes you can get in the way of yourself of an opportunity by not taking a chance. And so I was comfortable getting the 30%, 40% bonus. I love my toys, and, but I wasn't willing to give up money. And so finally, I came to a realization that, you know what, it's time. And so my coach helped me realize, she helped analyze me, and we came up with a plan. So when I got that layoff call, I said, what's the package? And I'm like, okay, I can stay on the bench for 2 years. I'm gonna try some stuff out. And from that point forward, I have led with a no fear mentality. And I think that's where I get my best results, by continuing to live by no fear, by collaborating. First and foremost, my wife and I, we're partners, and putting God first. So I'm not afraid to say that. That is just at the center of who I am. So you can take it or leave it, but that's me in a nutshell. So 2014, I joined the Attorney General's office. I went there for an interview, and they came back and they said, here's what you asked to do, and here's the title, and here's 2 more thirds of stuff you didn't even ask for. So I was like, man, so I could check the box and be a deputy CIO. So I was happy at that point, because I felt like I had checked the box. I said, okay, let's rock with it. I got the package, if we're gonna try this out. And so I came on board, same concept. Let me try and understand, let me listen first. I met with a bunch of groups. I met with the law enforcement team. I met with the legal team. I met with the collections team and the operations team. And through the course of doing those, I was just building relationships, just being me. Again, no fear, because what's the worst thing that could happen? They fire me. I'll find another job, because I have faith that, that a need will be fulfilled. And so as we're working through that, it was an opportunity where they asked me to interview for the CIO position. So 4 months later, after being laid off, I had the opportunity, and I went full-fledged. I went in with a presentation, PowerPoint presentation, just like I was presenting to one of my clients when I was at Accenture. And they're like, we're not quite sure if this is allowed. Normally we drive the interview process, and I'm like, okay, well, ask your questions. well, you already answered all of our questions. I said, did someone give you the answers? I said, or questions? Like, no. This is my plan. I've been working on this for the last 2 years. Here it is. So I was able to do some great things at the Attorney General's office. A few awards came along, the Pathway, Emerging Leader, and then in 2019, after spending 4 years with the Attorney General's office, I thought I would go back to private. And so the Attorney General then called me and said, hey, Ervan, I got a big job for you. And yeah, he wasn't taking no for an answer. I had 2 other opportunities, actually 3, that I could have gone back out to the private industry. But there's just something about state government, about the government that strikes me. I can feel what I do and see the impact that it has on citizens real time. That means something to me. And so as I'm making changes, I can see those changes versus making changes for a stockholder. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's all about the shareholder, whereas this is about the customer, the citizen. So I said, all right, let's do it. So I went from managing $50 million to managing $2 billion, and I would be over the state's direction from an IT strategic standpoint. It has been nothing but fun-filled ride for the last 11 months that I've been at it. If you follow me on LinkedIn, it's not that I'm not bragging. What I am doing is I'm promoting what it is that we do in Ohio. I want other states to understand. I want other businesses that are looking to our state to come here with investments. It's one of the things that I felt as though there were some great things taking place that just wasn't being showcased. So it's not uncommon to see me at an event for a state event or at a private sector networking event. In fact, I was at one Sunday across the street at Root Insurance where I was judging the startup competition. Amazing things. Yes, there are a few state people that were there, but when other states are looking to come to Ohio, they're looking at, can I make money? Is the talent there? And so I got the opportunity to express that, yes, it's here, and we're here, we're large and in charge. One of my favorite groups that in this particular position is NASCIO. So NASCIO, so I think that covered all that. Oh, and by the way, yes, I am a professional DJ. It was a skill that I acquired in college, and with the help of my kids, they helped me to hone in the appropriate music that I should pick. Because apparently, before they got involved, my playlists weren't the best. But I say now, my playlists are the bomb. Yes? There was. But that's why I gave them credit. And so music is a way for me to relieve stress. It continues to be. Now, have I DJ'd any events since I've taken this particular seat? No. I think it's just one 5K race. And then I try and incorporate it in some of my speeches and some of the talks that I give. In fact, the last one at the Tech Power Players, I incorporated it because it was at the end of the day, 3 o'clock. I'm like, nobody's going to come listen to me, man. So, but the room was full. I started playing music before we got started. And people were like, man, what is that? And so they kind of brought them in. And then I walked them through a history of innovation with regards to the DJ business. So all the way going from the 8-track. I remember 8-tracks. I don't. That was before my time. So then vinyl to cassette to CDs to MP3s to streaming. If you would ask me, 5 years or 3 years ago, would I ever pay for radio? Like, no. But now everything is going to streaming. Disney Plus. All those types of services. So you have to continue to innovate your leadership style. You have to continue to innovate as from a leadership standpoint. If not, you will get left behind. Take, for instance, Blockbuster. So I actually was at Gartner Symposium. It was a fantastic event. They actually had one of the co-founders for Netflix on stage, and we got a chance to hear this dynamic dialogue go on. And I heard the backstory. So the backstory is that Blockbuster had an opportunity. They had an opportunity of a lifetime to actually partner with Netflix. All Netflix wanted to do is just come up and they let us be your delivery, your platform. And Blockbuster in their suits, sat back. Yeah, we're not trying to hear it. Now, in Blockbuster's defense, they did show up to the meeting in shorts and flip-flops, and so at that time it wasn't really. But at that point, the Blockbuster executives embarrassed the Netflix guys, and they said, you know what, we got to kick their butts. You can fill in the appropriate word that he used, but see, I'm getting better. And then, so that was really, really inspiring because if you remember all the Blockbuster stores that are around town, some of them are clothing stores, restaurants, brick and mortar. It's you either get with the times or you get left behind. And so I've chosen to ensure that I'm out front from a technology perspective, and I'm willing to partner with groups such as OCEDA, partner with the counties, the cities, you name it, because I think we have a great assets from a state perspective, and in the day, it's all about Ohio for me and what it is that we can push forward. So with that being said, I came in with 14 new state CIOs. The group that I talked about was the National Association of State CIOs, and in that group, I actually made them say, OH. Some of them did not like it, but through the course of the 4 days, that's what they know me by now. So the day 3, I was like, all right, I won't do it because they were kind of annoyed. But they're like, hey, you feeling okay today? Why haven't you said it yet? I just stand up in the middle of the midday when everybody's starting to weigh on the other end. I'd say, OH. And they respond back. So now that I've gone to the annual conference, I can't even get halfway down the hallway, and it's like, OHIO, so it's catching on, and people are understanding that, we've got some great things, great assets that are here that they're wanting to mimic. And so we just recently won an award for our ILP platform. That's the Innovate Ohio platform, which is a data sharing component where you can ingest data into what we call a data lake and get lots of useful information from a data analytics standpoint. It's built. We just got to use it. And so I'm pushing it to the next level. We're making all kinds of investments. I have an RFP out on the street right now to have additional pre-qualified vendors so they can come in and help out. I'm also trying to find ways to basically provide training for our staff and team. I want to make sure we have the right economics from a staffing contractor perspective, because right now it's kind of, it needs some adjusting. We're doing all kinds of cool things, and I'll talk about AI, robotics, processing automation. And when people think of the state, they're like, yeah, right. They go home at 2 o'clock and, like, no, that's not the case. And so I think folks are starting to see that energy, feel that energy. I love my job. I love what I do. It's the first time in a long time. I felt that way when I first joined Accenture, and over time it kind of wears you down. For every year that you're a consultant, it's a life equivalency in a regular job of 4 years. So to make it, 7 to 8 years, not bad. It's kind of like dog years, right? So, and so you can see from a transition perspective with regards to the green states basically represent transition. And even from this aspect, there have been a number of other transitions that have taken place since this time. And so one of those things is I want to try and do as much good as I can do while I can do it. And that's very, very, very important to me. And a lot of that comes down to collaboration. So I already went through this, so you guys already have that, but I always incorporate that in my slide, especially for groups that may not be very popular too. So I'm looking forward to going to Michigan because I'm going to go back home. And a lot of the folks that are on the Michigan side, I actually went to high school with. It's amazing. So they all went to Michigan State or Michigan, et cetera. And they're like, why are you over there, man? You should be over here with us. I'm like, I'm rocking right here because we're winning. We're number 2. So I love going back home. Love going back home in OSU gear, especially during football season. Basketball, I won't tell you what I wear. All right, so collaboration at all levels of government equals a recipe for success. So, Adam and I are going to talk later because I think we have a real opportunity here on many, many levels, whether it be from a data standpoint or even from a blockchain perspective. So these are very, new emerging technologies. And so I'm putting out an emerging technology RFP, many of the contracts that we put out, you guys can take advantage of with the negotiated prices, et cetera. Some we make available to just you all if it's a competing priority or a service, et cetera. So I am a huge Marvel, DC, fan. Yes, I am a cool nerd. I'm proud of it, and that's just me. But ultimately, I think there is this is an interesting statement. I wrote this in the airport coming back from a conference, and so we were making this joke that whenever I put a presentation together or have to, I'm usually in the airport. So this is the first time I put this presentation together that wasn't in the airport. So I still called a few folks last night to say, let's pretend we're in the airport so I can get some good vibes, good synergies. So from a state CIO perspective, I find that these 5 essential leadership traits, and many of the traits you can take and incorporate those into your own leadership style. But the first one being that of emotional intelligence. It's the ability to be able to read the room, make sure folks are engaged. You guys look like you're engaged, so hopefully I'm not boring you to tears. Collaboration. That has been the single most used. It's more than just a slogan or a catchphrase. I believe it to my core. Everything from the digital summit that we put on, the CIO Academy. We want to make sure we're engaging, we're involving everyone and not just the state. Political savvy, oh my. So I thought I was really politically savvy until I joined the state. And then I got this new concept called little P, big P. And so I like to think that I'm pretty good at both of them now. There are some days where I'm like, okay, I need to kind of stretch myself, go to the gym, stretch out a little bit. And then unifying vision, right? If people don't know where you're trying to go, what they're trying to do, or what you're trying to do, then it's like the blind leading the blind. So you have to be clear and be very intentional about the things that you're trying to do. And last but not least, relentless curiosity. Just because you continue to do something one way doesn't necessarily mean you have to continue to do it that way the entire time. There's always better ways to do it, and that's why I've made a point my first year. I said that I was going to attend every possible thing that I could attend. Fortunately for me, my wife and my family support me, so they know that I love what I'm doing, and that, so I asked for a grace period of 6 months, kind of stretch that a little bit, but next year I'm already trying to proactively, make some changes, et cetera. So collaboration, I wanted to actually show you. So this is one of the events that, I don't show this very often, but this is one of the events that I actually DJ'd. So when I first came in, all the CIOs across all the various agencies, there's 32 of them, and we get together once a month, and I give them updates, we solicit feedback, et cetera, but it was just kind of a one-way conversation. So I wanted to change that. I wanted to just not feel like you're going to church, not that there's anything wrong with going to church, but I wanted it to be a two-way conversation. And so I said, you know what, the next meeting, we are going to have a think tank. And folks are like, a think tank, what's that? So I said, no, just like the TV show. And so I'm talking about it, and they're like, okay, yeah. Can we hear him get out of here? And I said, no, I'm going to lead it. And they're like, you're going to lead it? I said, yes, it's going to be a state-led with my vision in place, and I'm going to drive it. They're like, yeah, right. He'll hire somebody. He'll bring somebody in to do it. I said, no, I'm going to do it. And so as we started to talk about it, I was looking at their faces, and they were looking back at me, and they're like, this seems like his agenda. So then I quickly changed midstream, and I started to say we. And I started to say we more. And that really resonated with folks. I said, we are the technology engines behind the Innovate Ohio platform. So Innovate Ohio is all about trying to do business as though we are an Amazon or a, you pick your flavor. People as the citizens, they want those real-time services, just like you go into retail, et cetera. And so I'm going to play a small clip for you. So not only did I lead the session, I did partner with Lean Ohio because I wanted to have facilitators there so that I wasn't like sitting there and stifling creativity, but it was an agenda that I worked very, very hard with my deputy CIO, Katrina Flory, to make sure that we were driving, and I was very serious about it. There were a number of vendors that were catching wind, wanting to offer services, and I'm like, no, it's important that people see me in this position as a state CIO. So I'm going to play a small clip for you. Hopefully it works. So not only did I lead the session, but I also played cameraman. There was no job that was too small. I brought coffee, I made donuts. I made sure that I was in a servant leadership perspective. And at the end of it, we gathered over 300 ready shovel ideas that we could share across agencies, right? And so I thought I'd be done at that point, but they wanted to do it again. So we not only had another session, but we had 2 more sessions. And it's been a real success. But that's really where, I'm spinning up my collaboration web. We had several teams that broke off and started to think about various things. People were afraid to share their data. Good news is what this administration, it's not a matter of, if you're going to share, it's a matter of, well, why can't you share? So it's a different kind of a tone. And yes, we are keeping the data safe. We are following all the various regulatory requirements and the things that need to be adhered to. But we have this big asset, we just need to take advantage of it. So, winning combinations for me, I brought this back because Beverly said she saw it in the presentation, reminded me. I couldn't find my original, so I kind of created this last night. It's a winning recipe for me. It's all about the aptitude, attitude, and skills. I added skills to it, but basically if you have the aptitude and the right attitude and the skills, that's a winning combination for me. If you have the aptitude and the willingness to do it, I'm willing to have you on my team. If your attitude stinks and you've got the aptitude, I don't want you on my team. There's a big difference because the right attitude, we can help shape, mold, collaborate, needing that energy, driving that energy. And it's one of the reasons why I really believe in this apprenticeship program that we've established. It's a 2-year program where folks can come in. They don't necessarily have the skill set or experience to hit some of the minimum quals in order to compete and participate so that we can continue to bake the resources that we need so we can stop stealing from one another. Because we do it all the time, I do it. And so we need to have a baseline in place because we have a willingness of people that are willing to do it. They just need an opportunity. So, attitude. You like that, don't you? You see that? Yeah, okay. So the animation, I had to call her. It's like, how do you do X, Y, and Z? So, right here is aptitude, kind of what I talked about here. Again, some of the successes that I think are required. From an attitude standpoint, it's, if you worked with a person with a funky attitude and you knew they had the knowledge and you just had to work with them to get what you needed, that was probably painful as all get out, right? Versus the person that had the desire but may not have the experience but willing to sit down at the table and whiteboard it out and learn it together, I always say you can find out from the great Google machine, if I use Katrina Flory's saying. From a skills perspective, same thing, right? So it's the ability to do something well, expertise that you may bring to the table. A big part of this is being able to share your knowledge. And we create an environment from an innovation standpoint that allows you to do that. So creating an environment, I think, is the leader's responsibility to lead by example. And so how can leaders foster innovative environments? Here are my top 10 ways that folks can go about doing those kinds of things. I won't exhaust this list, but number 1 to me, again, a common vision, a common goal, always important, and a commitment to work together. So those are things that I pride myself in throughout my career. It's just one of those things. With regards to Ohio, so again, this is very important to me. OH? We have Innovate Ohio. How many of you are familiar with Innovate Ohio? Okay, so I won't bore you with it, but what I will say is that there are partnerships all over the place. In fact, I was recently at TRC, forget the acronym, what it stands for, but it's the training ground where they have all the cars and manufacturers that can go on test tracks, et cetera. It was the first time I was in a conversion van, and we got up on the bank that's actually at a higher embankment, higher than the NASCAR, and we're all the way in the very top lane. I just wish I was driving, and I wish I was driving something fast. But anyway, we went there, and it was pretty cool. So as a result of Innovate Ohio, we have a collaboration of Smart Columbus, Drive Ohio, the Smart Mobility, Smart 33 Mobility Corridor. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a statewide IDE, Information Data Exchange, where we are streaming data real time from these cars soon the cars will talk to one another and will change the pattern with regards to lights, potholes, you name it. Especially some of the newer cars like the Teslas, there's over 4 gigs per hour that's being collected. That is a lot of data. So we're trying to leverage products that are in the cloud that we can use real-time streaming capabilities, and to go out there and see some of the cool technologies that they're doing. And we're coming together to do what's best for the state of Ohio so that we can attract more vendors, more than just say the Honda who builds cars here. There were probably over 4 different competitors, and it was pretty cool because I'm a car guy to see all of the camouflage cars and the bags over the cars to try and hide them, and it was amazing to see the amount of investment that's on that particular grounds. So they have everything from your traditional dummy, crash sites to now what they're inventing is smart interaction, and it's primarily to take advantage of the new technology that's coming out. Not sure if you're aware now, but Ford just announced that in 5 years they're planning to stop making combustible engines. For $500, you can reserve your Mach-E, their Ford Mustang mock-up that's an electric car. So again, you can either be a part of the innovation or you can get left behind. And I encourage you to continue. Back when I was growing up, I didn't have the great Google machine where I could just Google or go to YouTube. We had books. We had to go, the microfiche and, go to the library where you look at the card and try and find it and go on the shelf, et cetera. Everything's electronic now. So one thing my grandfather told me was that, he retired when computers were starting to kind of come into play. And later on he says, I won't tell you my nickname, but he says, such and such, I wish I would have really embraced those computers. And I was like, you still can. So let's, so don't get left behind, so you can continue to innovate, bring those creative ideas here. I encourage you, just because you're with the county, government worker, don't embody that stereotype. There's stereotypes all over the place. Heck, there's stereotypes in the private industry as well. You got people sleeping on their desk and leaving at 3 o'clock and calling off on Friday too. So it's one of those things where make sure that you're not becoming something that somebody else is talking about. Innovate Ohio, this is from our Lieutenant Governor. I partner with Lieutenant Governor John Husted. We started this initiative a couple months before we actually took office, and we're having various conversations. He's very passionate about technology, which makes it very easy, well, I won't say easy, but it makes it easier for us to help deliver that message in a collaborative nature, having support from the top of the house. I was one of the first of the 6 appointees, so I got appointed even before I knew who my boss was. And so that was amazing. That was amazing thrill ride, et cetera. With the same breath, we were in rooms trying to prepare to change the dialogue, change the conversation, to make government cool again, right? So it's great to have partnership and support like that at the top of the house. So if you don't have that from an IT standpoint, you need to align yourself. And if you don't have that support, then you need to look in the mirror and say, am I telling that story appropriately? It may be you that's standing in the way of your innovation, similar to me standing in the way of being CIO. There are a couple of platforms that I won't drain, but a new one that's come out is the tech cred that's not up here. I need to update this slide, but that's a pretty cool one where, unfortunately, the state, we can't take advantage of that, but companies, we're trying to encourage companies to take advantage of $1,200 per person for skills that they may be trying to reskill or tool up their employees. So again, from a state perspective, we're trying to do our part by making the appropriate investments, and I think it's a pretty smart one. The IP promise, I think that's pretty cool. I can't tell you the number of ideas I've had in college, and for a paper, I turned it in, and next thing I know, I see my idea, making millions. And so I think that's a great opportunity to keep people incentivized. We have an innovative Ohio advisory board made up of a number of entrepreneurs, so it's a different kind of a slant and take on it. So earlier you heard me talk about that, it's all about, being customer-centric and data-driven, and it's surrounding the citizen. One of the things that I'm really, really proud of is our ability to see that we were having an epidemic with the opiates, et cetera. So we know where those hotspots are, and we can redirect resources, et cetera. The other thing is the infant mortality study was just conducted, and we found out that African American babies were dying at a much higher rate. So being able to modify programs, make sure that we have the appropriate transportation, et cetera. So those are kinds of things that this governor, regardless of whether you're Republican, Democrat, we can all get behind the citizen at the end of the day. And if it's all about making sure that people have the right access, that's what I'm about. So our strategy from a business standpoint, it's an offense-defense standpoint. It's along the lines of making sure that from a technology perspective, we're providing those tool sets, we're providing the appropriate platform to allow folks the ability to ingest, understand the data. So it's not all about the technical tools. We also provide tools that are available to the business areas where they can actually do some of this work on their own, right? Because at the end of the day, the line between IT and the business is starting to blur. And as time goes on, that you're going to see that more and more take place. So if you are comfortable and pitching your tent and not let anybody else in, there's a wave that's coming. You're going to get left behind. So I can encourage you to embrace the business. If you're IT, if you're business, I encourage you to embrace your IT folks. More about the Innovate Ohio platform. One of the cool things about this is that what we're pushing is, we have 32 boards, agencies, and commissions, and it's a 32 different, type of experience, right? So, the home button might be over here for one website, maybe over here for another website. Come on, man. We're the same state. So at least from a state perspective, I don't know how you guys do it in the county, but from a state, I'll pick on us. It's along the lines of we're trying to make sure we have the united platform, so it's a better experience for the citizen. In addition to that, if you're going out trying to get your hunting license, or you got to go pay taxes, guess what? I know it's the same person, so why do you have 3 different IDs? And so that's part of the ID management strategy that we're trying to put in place. We have a number of agencies, I would say all agencies are on board. Now it's about trying to prioritize it and get the appropriate help, train the appropriate people so that we can continue to move forward. So the demand is great, which I think is great, but that comes by having the support at the very top of the house. One of the things I'm really, really proud of is that I attend all of the cabinet meetings, where in the past the state CIO didn't do that. So I have 2 roles. I'm also the state CIO, I'm the state CIO, and I'm the assistant DAS director. So I report to Matt Schroeder, who's the DAS director. So kind of twofold. The first 6 months I just concentrated on state CIO because I needed to get some stability. So innovation doesn't necessarily always come in a shiny tool or shiny vocal. Sometimes it's about polishing up what you got and making sure that it's stable. So data and analytics, there's all kinds of analytic capabilities, tools that we can provide. We'll have a health data portal that's going to come out soon. Again, making sure that we're redacting and keeping the information safe. So security, for me, is extremely important. It happened for me when I became not only became the CIO at the Attorney General's office and the CISO at the same time. So it was like Jekyll and Hyde having conversations with myself. I got to go fast. I got to keep it safe. And then that's where I developed that appreciation, which I'm grateful for that experience. It was a stressful 6 months, but you know what I'm talking about. But it became one of those things where, I had a greater appreciation for it. And so I don't talk about security at the very end. I start with it in the very beginning. So those are the websites I talked about, digital identity, talked about that. Oh, if you would like to provide any feedback, you can go to this website. It's a real-time forum that is monitored. It's not a fake site. You can go to this site, you can provide some feedback, and sometimes the lieutenant governor actually reaches out. So some of the cool technology that we're using, be conscious of time. I'm actually at the top of the hour, so my bad. We're using the RPA to eliminate some of the mundane tasks so that we can have our resources focus in on more high-touch areas. And then bots. We have baby bots, we have a pregnant bot, we have chat bots that will dynamically respond to you appropriately. We're using Watson, so in our call centers to help auto-assign with ServiceNow. And these are all the things I'm responsible for. So the list is quite extensive. And last but not least, team collaboration makes the dream work. So with that, I'm going to stop, pause. I can take a few questions if you guys have any questions. Sorry I talked so long, but. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Before you speak, because we're trying to get you into the camera, so we're going to bring you a mic. No, it's got you.
Okay. So what is like your greatest accomplishment of a project or program that you implemented that you're really proud of?
You know, I think I'll go back to my Accenture days. Only reason I say that is because it's one of the few patents. I'm on a couple of patents there. And it kind of helped shape and change the way that call centers are taken advantage of now. Now, am I getting any royalties from that? No, not really. But I think some of my other greatest accomplishments are really, family, when it comes down to family, supporting my kids. They mean everything to me. And I want them to be proud of me and what it is that I do. So, yep. Yes, sir. Or, yes, ma'am. Bevelin.
Do you see at this point, do you think you've reached a ceiling, or is it still more that you can accomplish? What do you do after CIO?
So, great question. I'm not done. When I say I'm competitive, to be at the Rodgers house, you can't be coming slipping second. We just don't allow that. You got to be tough skin, thick skin. We're going to push you. We're going to push one another. What's next for me is I'll come at that crossroad at 4 years and I'll make that determination, but I'm going to work my butt off. I worked my butt off for the 4 years while I was at the Attorney General's office, which led me to this particular opportunity. And again, I'm going to work my butt off for the state. And I'm sure it will lead to a great opportunity. The opportunities are coming now, but I'm saying no because I'm focused in on my mission, my commitment back to the governor. So it all comes with time, especially if you are approaching it from an authentic perspective, the opportunities will come. But for now, I'm having a blast. I'm having a good time.
Okay, so Ervan, I could imagine, and I'm not sure, when you first took on the role, working with the other agency CIOs, I would imagine they worked in a silo prior to you coming. How much of a heavy lift was it for you to bring on that collaborative spirit, and how easy was it for them to mold into your vision and mission?
Great question, thank you. So of the 32 boards and commission, I actually hired 14 new CIOs for agencies. Through the course of that, I got a chance to pick and choose the folks that I thought would be great and that would align closely to the DeWine Houston administration's policies and whatnot. And so that's been kind of half of the battle. The other half is I have relationships with all of the executive directors, commissioners, and more than 50% I earned while I spending time at the Attorney General's office. So when I come to the table, I don't bring those heavy hammers. I come to the table in earnest, and we sit down, we have an authentic conversation. There may be an agency that's doing it better than, say, we're doing it centrally, and I'll adopt their practice and call them out, give them credit for it. I won't just take the credit, because I've had people do that to me. That doesn't feel good when someone takes your stuff, puts their name on it without even giving you a shout out. But I think it really comes back to, the key message, collaboration. Collaboration is everything, and especially if you're coming to people from an authentic standpoint, they're going to respect you for it. So.
And to build off of Beverly's question, on the top 5 things that you mentioned to be successful, you talked about a unifying vision and making sure that it was clear and that people knew what it was. I know at the state of Ohio, you're very federated with the different agencies. We are too at Franklin County with the different political elected officials. What do you do when people have different visions to ensure that they are able to buy in to your unified vision so that as Franklin County, we can have one vision instead of 14?
Great question. So that's a daily task for me. The 32 plus the boards and commissions that I didn't count the 32. Of course, they want to do things their own way, that they can do it cheaper, faster. But I have to bring them back to the common vision of what's best for the state. A lot of it is just along lines of, instead of, I mentioned earlier, changing the concept of going to church. What do I mean by that? I stand at a podium, I give you the update. Any questions? Thank you. And they're off into the racing. Versus, hey, here's a concept that I just came up with. It's called Cloud Smart. I want to go to Cloud Smart. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what it is, X, Y, and Z. What do you think? And then I had a few folks that, say, well, that won't quite work for me, et cetera. I have a concept, and I've adopted it from NASCIO, that there are no snowflake organizations. It's a matter of we have to get work done, and there's a way to accommodate that. And it's always someplace in the middle. It's never, I'm never going in with, it's my way or the highway. I could do that based on Ohio Revised Code. I choose not to do that because I won't get the bees, you get more honey with bees, as my grandfather would say, right? So it's more than, I wish you could come to some of my meetings, but when I say collaboration, it's the real deal. I'm looking for real feedback. I'm not looking for somebody to just give me a boilerplate, thinking what I want to hear. So I surround myself with people that will challenge, but yet once we have the conversation, and we may not always agree, but I'll have the final call and say, this is what we're doing. I need everybody to get on board and get with it. And so I'm seeing that because of that approach, even though they may not necessarily be aligned with it, they at least had an opportunity to have a seat at the table and have their voice be heard. So, yep, no problem.
So I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit. Working for the county, and I do the HR recruiting, and so a lot of times it's hard to find the top talent that wants to come here. We can't offer all the bells and whistles, and so of course we're here and we're always trying to find the best talent. So I wanted to ask you, what is one of the best interview questions or an interview question that you use, because you have built a really strong team around you, that you would recommend that other people could use to find the good talent?
So from an HR standpoint, a couple things before I answer your question. I make it my business to go to HR recruiting events. Sometimes I'm at those events, my HR folks aren't. And that's where you catch the best talent. I also make it my business to, if you take a look at any of my posts, and I encourage you to take a look at them. They're never self-promoting. It's always along the lines of, okay, here is, and I tag a bunch of people in it, because I want everybody to experience it. Yeah, I may have an interview. In fact, I've got tons of interviews, but I rarely post those. There is one I'm going to post today because I actually call up my parents and I thank them and my wife. But with regards to HR, it's everybody's business. And so coming from private, I feel like nobody can tell that story better than me. So when I'm sitting down at the table, I'm like, yeah, I get you get that big salary, man. But look at that benefits. I want you to bring your entire 360-degree package with you to the table, and let's compare. And so I use the example of my wife works for Nationwide. She pays 4 times the amount that I pay for healthcare. So that means something. That counts. So put that in the digits and that alignment. Secondly, let's take a look at vacation time. How many hours do you get to use if you work over 40? They're like, none. It's just expected. I'm expected to work 60 hours. I said, right. So add that up, because that's worth something. Guess what? For every hour, even at my level, I get comp time. Now, granted, I may not use the comp time, but I have never used a vacation day in the 5 years that I've been here. I've always used comp time. I use that as a ploy. And then the other thing is that younger folks are more aligned, this newer generation, with purpose. And we have all the purpose in the world, but we don't do a good job of expressing those ideas and concepts. So if you have an event, you invite me, I'll come. Now, I am in grad school. I decided to go back. I kind of not quite sure why I did that, but I think I'm doing it to set the example for my kids. So, but that's what I would say. That's how I would answer that. And so as I start talking about the passion that I have, it just naturally comes across, because I'm excited about it. I'm excited about what we're doing. We're changing lives, impacting folks, just using technology. And so when you have the governor, I was in a meeting with him yesterday. We were in with Miss Ohio, and she was talking about the text to 911 platform, and I lead that program as well. And she's talking about all the various things. Our governor has an iPad and a phone in his hand, and he's doing, so technology is even at the most senior level in the organization at the state. So that's how I would answer that. I would encourage you to build a strong partnership with your HR folks, with your CIO / IT people, so whoever that is.
So we have time for 2 more questions. Anybody else?
Security. she came into my office and was wanting to talk about technology, and she's like, what are you guys using it? So I'm like, who's asking? So as she's talking, I'm looking her up like, so I'm texting Adam, is this cool? Because, anyway.
What advice do you have someone who's young and early on in their career in IT to have half as accomplishments as you've had?
So the one thing is always be humble. Always be humble. You know, Kendrick Lamar's song, be humble. Like that.
He's embarrassing.
She rolled her eyes
I
at me.
feel so bad
She
for
rolled her
her
eyes. Rolled her eyes. But again, like I said, you got to be thick skinned at the Rodgers household. We want to push each other. So what I would say is find a good mentor. Now, mentor-mentee relationships for me, I expect my mentee to own that relationship. You come prepared with an agenda. You come following up on the things I've said you should do based on what I've learned, because I'll always be transparent. It goes back to that attitude, aptitude. You got the right aptitude, you come in the right way. I meet with people every Saturday, for the most part, except when I go to the chiropractor, from 8 to 10. And I give out either 15-minute, 30-minute slots. And I just give my time away because somebody else did it for me. And so it's important to continue to, express and, exchange ideas. I get just out of much of that conversation that person is getting. So it's always a two-way street for me. There's always a new way or new twist that I can learn how to do things. So just be humble.
I asked Adam to kind of wrap up some things too.
So first of all, I'd like to just thank Ervan for being here, and I want to reiterate his whole aspect of what he talked about today. He and I are kindred spirits in a lot of things that we talk about, and he also truly does live the whole aspect of collaboration and coordination in what he does. And I remember the CIO conference this year. It was right after I took the position here. And I walked in the door, I ended up having a conversation with Mr. Houston, and literally he texted me 10 minutes later and said, what the heck did you do? Because I'm getting phone calls, I've got to talk to you. And the whole point is, we're all about collaboration, and we truly want to make a collaboration, and he's working very hard to, not just from a state level, but down to the local level, make the state a collaborative environment so that we are data sharing. And it's not about just data sharing, it's about who we are as a state and how do we become, and as you've all heard me say, the model county. He's all about making the model state. And where are we heading, and how do we make us the state that everybody comes to and asks about? And then how do we take it down to the local level that people come and say, okay, not just in the state, but let's talk to the smallest county or the largest county, and how are they working and how are they doing it? And it's a one-stop shop because he can pick up the phone and say, hey, I need help, can you go have this conversation? That's what he's about. I appreciate what he's doing, and I also appreciate the fact that they've basically took the shackles off the CIO at the state level and said, go run and go do it. And that's what Ervan's doing. He embodies that every day. So thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing what you bring to the table.
Thank you.